Hello, welcome to Atheist Torah Study. Atheist Torah Study is my year-long informal exploration of the Torah through the lens of an atheist Jew. My name is Emma. I'm an atheist, and I'm also a Jew. And I'm going to be reading today Parsha Behar Bechukotai. I hope I said that right. Um, it's a double portion. And it's the end of the Book of Leviticus. So let me look at my notes just to talk a little bit about it first before we read it. Um, Parsha Behar Bechukotai introduces the idea of Shemitah, which is the sabbatical year. It introduces the idea of the Jubilee year, which is every 50th year. It talks about um, trying to help out the community um, through a series of rules that are supposed to be helping people. And then we get to Parsha Bechukotai, and it's uh it's it's almost like the entire book of Deuteronomy like rolled into one parsha. It's really good. It's got my favorite line in the entire Torah, which is, "If you don't follow my ways, I will make your skies like lead and your land like copper." I love that imagery. I love that metallic imagery. Anyways, it's basically one big curse, and it's like the granddaddy of all curses. I mean, it's a great curse, and it's really fun to read as an atheist. So actually, I think what we'll do is we'll start there. I've never done this before with the Parsha, but I think we'll start there. That's a great place to start. So, I mean, what's the atheist take on this Parsha before we begin? Well, it's really going to depend on the text because it varies so much according to the text. From a really big perspective, this is about trying to compel obedience by basically arguing that if you don't do, I mean, it's actually a really interesting parsha for an atheist because it has so much in it that I mean, I don't think that you know Jewish people nowadays don't treat this like it's real. I mean, they don't. Well, I wish I'd had more time to get into what some of the other deities were that you would be punished so badly for if you worship them or set up a, but I didn't quite get to that. So, but I mean, again, from an atheist perspective, this is really about this parsha in particular. Well, I mean, it has two parts to it. The first part is kind of it's one idea of how to have a just system. I mean, I think like with everything in the Torah, like this is just being really generous. I mean, but I really like the Torah a lot. So, I mean, I don't mind being generous with it. Um, so being generous with the Torah, like everything in the Torah, it's like art. I mean, as an artist, I really appreciate the Torah because I understand that when you look at something, there's so much that's deeper than what you see on the surface. I mean, in a way, what's on the surface of what you're looking at is just like it's an entryway. It's an entryway into a much deeper surface. not just a deeper surface. It's like it's an entryway into whatever the portal of association is within your mind. Because phenomenologically, whatever you see and you're experiencing kinesthetically or visually or tactile, you're experiencing that in your consciousness. And so the Torah is kind of the same way. And what the Torah contains, what I enjoy so much about it, is that it contains a lot of seeds, a lot of impulses, a lot of instincts, a lot of good instincts. And then it also captures the memory of the redactors. I mean, it's very clear the Torah was written by a bunch of cranky old men. Of course, I don't really know that. I mean, the Torah, I've heard a theory that the Torah was written by a queer woman. I mean, I've heard that theory too. So, anyways, let's get into the text. It's Shabbos morning here, and I've sort of, I've kind of drifted into this habit of doing these on Erev Shabbat, which I don't mind because I stay up late all the time. So, anyways, we're gonna have some fun today. This is gonna be a fun atheist Torah study. This is written by a diva, definitely. This is definitely written by a diva, like some cranky old daddy who you know, lost his dom or lost his sub, and he's just he's like really pissed off. So now he's like taking it out on like the text, basically. Anyways. All right. So we're gonna start in Parsha Bechukotai, kind of about halfway into it. So I think let's see, let me find out where that is. I think it's like 27, 6, 7. Oh, and also this is the last book of Leviticus. I guess it's 20, yeah, it's 27. Oh no, it's 20. Oh God. I forgot about all the slavery. All right. Well, that's why you got to look at the text to really know what you're doing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that's like super, super duper offensive. Like it's actually some of the most offensive stuff in the entire Torah. And it has to do with like all of the different rules around slavery. Now, when we get to it, if we do get to it, all the commentaries I ever read or have seen are all like, oh, it's not so bad because this is like a Jewish idea of how to deal with slavery. And it's much more advanced than like what the other cultures around the time were practicing. And I'm just like, the whole book is a book about how you just came out of slavery. And now you're writing a parsha about how to practice slavery. I mean, God, it's just, please. Oh. There's just nothing redeeming. I'm sorry. There's just the slavery stuff. It's just there's nothing redeeming about it. I mean, it's archaeologically, I don't know. Anyways, oh, this Parsha's got a lot to it. This is like a really crazy Parsha, but I want to find the start of the really, okay, here we go. It's actually the beginning of Bechukotai. So it's Leviticus 26, chapter 26, verse 3. Okay, here it goes. We're gonna have fun commenting on this. So the first part is kind of cheerful. If you follow, this is again, this is the end of the book of Leviticus. So, and you know what we say at the end of the book of Leviticus? We say the blessing that you say at the end of every Torah, except for the book of Leviticus is very special. The blessing at the end of the book of Leviticus is, it's over, it's over. Thank goodness it's over. So you repeat that 3 times. Anyway, so here it goes. Parsha Bechukotai. If you follow my laws faithfully and observe my commandments. So, again, here's the redactor. I think it's the Hasmoneans, basically the Hasmonean priest kings. And they're basically telling you what you have to do in order to obey them and obey this narrative. And then it's making like a whole bunch of like crazy promises. And these are like promises that religions often make. I mean, you see this kind of stuff all the time here in the United States. I mean, people who are predicting the future and saying, this is like there's just so many examples of this in almost every religious tradition. This idea that like if you're faithful to the God, then the God will somehow physically reward you, you know. And it's like, I mean, as an atheist, I just think, well, your reward is that you exist. That's your reward. Your reward is the universe. You live in a universe and it's full of complexity, and you just, absolutely won the Goldilocks prize by landing on the best planet that we know of in the solar system anyways. You landed on the best planet in the solar system for being a conscious being, and you have a great atmosphere, and it's mostly self-sustaining, except that we screw it up. But it's like you already got everything, so you got all the good stuff. Now what you need to do is just enjoy it and try not to hurt anybody if you can. And if you do hurt someone, make it up, but it's like that's your job. I mean, your job is to enjoy your life. You don't have to get some kind of reward from a non-existent deity. But this is also like so I've picked up on some, when I started Atheist Torah Study this year, I discovered Yonatan Adler, who like really opened up my mind in a lot of ways to the nature of the text from the perspective of the Hasmonean era. And then just recently I stumbled across Feuerbach, and Feuerbach, like the German, the German philosopher, the 19th century German philosopher, really got me thinking about the idea that when people are writing about God, they're writing about themselves. They're like, the God that they're writing about is a mirror of their own desire. And that's just fascinating to me, absolutely fascinating. And it seems really true. It's like it explains a lot. It really goes a long way toward explaining the text. I mean, when I was younger, I was really interested in like a Jungian analysis of the text. Um, and then when I started to really study Torah seriously, then I was really just interested in traditional Jewish interpretation and Jewish commentary on the text. But it's been too limited for me as an atheist. I mean, that's part of why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I really respect the text. I mean, I'm not, sometimes I worry that I come across as disrespectful of it, or even, you know, just very disrespectful of it. And I really don't intend to do that. I mean, I, I think that, I think that being an atheist and deconstructing the text is actually one of the most interesting things that you can do with it. I mean, it's been interpreted by theists for thousands of years, but it rarely gets interpreted by atheists, and especially not atheists who have really spent a lot of time, working with the tradition. And it's like I'm not just working with the tradition like to be some smart atheist. I mean, I'm working with the tradition as a Jew, using the Jewish tools that have been provided to me through my study and by modeling how Jews study Torah. By doing that and learning all of the different tools, except I don't have a mastery of Hebrew. I don't think I ever will. Um, I don't know. I just, I work a full-time job, and I'm an activist, I'm an artist. I don't know if I have time to like pick up Hebrew. I mean, I'm 56, so I don't know. Maybe I will someday. Anyways, okay, sorry. Blah blah blah. I'm talking about me. Oh God. All right. I need to stop doing that. Here goes. Parsha Bechukotai. I just read the first part. If you follow my laws, I will grant rains in their season, so that the earth shall yield its produce, the trees of the field their fruit. I mean, it doesn't take a God. I mean, God doesn't cause the rain in their seasons. I mean, the rains have been falling since the very beginning of the earth. But it is really fascinating. I mean, just this verse, I think we're going to spend the whole hour in this parsha. I'm pretty sure we're going to spend the whole hour in this parsha, and I don't know how much of it I'll get to, but I think I'll get to a lot of it. Anyways, so what the science says, this is really interesting. What the science says, well, there's a couple of different theories. So one theory is that the way that the earth got all of the water that it got was it kept on getting hit by snowballs, basically. Like the earth formed and then it kind of cooled and was condensing, and all these meteors, not meteors, all these comets from outer space landed on Earth, and they brought all this water with them. And so that's one theory, because we know that there's a lot of frozen snowballs out in the Oort cloud. And the theory is just that, like in the very early solar system, there were these comets everywhere they were full of water ice. Now, another theory is that when the Earth was formed and condensed, it actually had a lot of water in it already, and the water kind of condensed on the surface. So that's another theory. And one of the things that is like one of the reasons that theory is compelling is because there's a lot of water like solidified in rock very deep under the mantle of the earth, not deep under the mantle in the crust, but very deep down in the crust. Um, that's actually where most of the water on Earth is. It's in highly pressurized crystalline rock formation, like 40 miles down the crust of the Earth. And I mean, for it to be that far buried down in the crust would more than likely mean that there was probably a lot of water on the Earth, like when it was first formed. But and I bet if you just Googled it or Chat GPT'd it right now, you could probably read all of the theories about where the water came from and how it got here. But anyways, so the reason that there's rains in their seasons is because there's water on the earth, and then we're in the Goldilocks zone. So we're in just the right place in relationship to the sun where like you could have a phenomenon like rain, like where I mean, there are things like rain in other planets in the solar system, like I think that in Venus it rains like acid or something. And then like one of the moons of Jupiter, it rains like methane. Anyway, so I mean, but there's other particulate things that fall from the sky of other planets. I mean, that are like rain, but the kind of thing that we have that's rain is very unique to our Earth. So, anyways, and then so let's go on. What the text is trying to get at here is it's trying to get at the idea at the beginning here that the earth is good and that the cycles of the seasons are good and that they're good because of God and that as long as people follow the teachings of the Torah, then they'll get all of these rewards. Which, I mean, I don't know. I mean, how as an atheist could we get anything out of that particular idea? How could we get anything useful out of it? I mean, it's kind of a tough one because it's going for the idea that I mean, so here's the thing, Feuerbach talks about this a lot, this idea of kind of deconstructing the Platonic because it's like you what Feuerbach says is that when you're thinking of the God, you're thinking of yourself. And but then in place of yourself, you put the supernatural, and the supernatural is like this other place that you can never get to, that never really exists, but it's a placeholder for your own ego. So, the idea here is that collectively, like if the people of Israel stick to the covenant, then they'll get all these benefits. And it's it's magical thinking. That's exactly what it is. It's magical thinking. It's this idea that if you think a certain way, then you'll get magical outcomes out of things that just happen naturally out of nature. But again, I mean, there's a hint of something much, much deeper here. And it's part of what I love about the Torah, because as you read the Torah and you go over it over and over again, you can really see that there are a lot of hints at um the hint isn't the right word, but it's like an impulse. It's an impulse for something that's true. So it's a general statement, but I mean, and what is the general statement? So the general statement here is that if you don't take care of things, then over time they will subsume you. If you take care of things, then you'll have a nice earth and it'll do all the things that it's supposed to do. But it's like, I mean, I've seen how the earth has just completely decompensated in the last even just 15 years. And so I was reading about this week. I was getting kind of freaked out about global warming like I usually do. I mean, pretty much all the time I get freaked out about global warming. And so I was like looking up like because I remember like 350 org. It wasn't that long ago. We had 350 org and it was like the idea was keep it to 350 and everything, as long as it stays at 350, it's good. But it's like I was looking at, I think right now we're at 438 and we're going up by like 2.5 per year. So 438 is 438 parts per million of carbon dioxide. And the pre-industrial level was 230 parts per million. So that's where all the snow is gone. Like it didn't really snow this year in Portland. We didn't get any snow. Now it's like super dry. It's gonna be a really dry out summer. And it's like Oregon used to be really wet. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. It was like maybe 20 years ago. I mean, it would always rain. It rained all the way through until the end of June. The rain didn't really stop until early July. And then you had like basically 6 weeks of summer, and then it started raining again. And now it's like, it was so creepy. Like the first time I noticed the rain stop in May, it was like 2 or 3 years ago. The rain just, I remember May 7th, it stopped raining. And it didn't rain for like 5 months until October. And by October, like everything was just brown and dead. And it's like, I mean, I know that that's how the weather was in California forever. And I just thought, well, but to see that kind of weather happening already in Oregon and happening so fast. And the thing is, I mean, we're going up by 2.5 parts per million every year. That means that in 100 years, we'll be at another 250, which means we'll be at like 680. And I was looking at some of the projections for what it's going to be like on the Earth, literally in just 100 years. I mean, I study history from 100 years ago. This is 1920, this is 2026. I mean, I remember studying the 1920s in high school. I mean, I remember studying about the 1920s 100 years ago. And this is like, so we're just talking about 100 years in the future. It's not that long. It's hardly any time at all. It's going to be another 250 parts per million higher than it is right now, based on what we're burning. And it's like, it's weird because it's like there's this war going on. There's this war happening in Iran. It's not a war, it's a US military invasion that's gone sideways. The US and Israel in this military invasion trying to overthrow the Iranian regime. And oil prices are just going crazy right now, really, really high. And gas is extremely unaffordable. And me, I'm thinking this is like the best thing for us. I mean, we should be doing this. Gas should be getting more and more expensive because if it's really expensive, it's going to force consumers to either use electricity or find some other alternative. And that's the point, is to get people off of fossil fuels because every time you run any fossil fuel burning machine, you're basically just adding to the carbon load. And it's like, it's not anybody's one fault in particular. I mean, when people began manufacturing, engines that ran on exploding gasoline in a cylinder, um, that's a whole industrial choice that people made 100 years ago about what kind of power sources they wanted, how they wanted it distributed through capitalism into markets so that every individual gets something. Um, just, very product oriented, very consumer oriented. And this is the result that we have now. We don't have any winters. The coral reefs are dying. The ocean is warming up. And then here's the Torah. Here's the Torah saying, if you don't do the things right, here's how all the ways I'm going to curse you. So, there's a hint there that if you don't take care of things and do things right, then there's going to be some really horrible things that'll happen to you. But first, let's read the good things that'll happen to you if you do the good things. Your threshing shall overtake the vintage, and your vintage shall overtake the sowing. You shall eat your fill of bread and dwell securely in your land. I will grant peace in the land, and you shall lie down untroubled by anyone. I will give you the land, respite from vicious beasts, and no sword shall cross your land. You shall give chase to your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. Well, that's not so good. 5 of you shall give chase to 100. 100 of you shall give chase to 10,000. Your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. I will look with favor upon you and make you fertile and multiply, and I will maintain my covenant with you. You shall eat old grain long stored, and you shall have to clear out the old to make way for the new. I will establish my abode in your midst, and I will not spurn you. I will be ever present in your midst. I will be your God, and you shall be my people. So there you go. There you have it. That's what happens if you're good. So now, and some more hints of stuff that was in the text here. I mean, I don't know. I think part of so from an anthropological perspective, this is sort of about what in the in what I can't remember what is this. Is this the oh, I just can't remember the name of this particular era. It's is it the Iron Age? I can't remember. Anyways, whatever epic, human epic this is, it's giving you some hints at like what people considered to be secure, like what security meant to them here. And so, for them, security meant having plenty to eat, not having anybody attack and kill you, and I guess listening to music, you know. So those were things that seemed to really matter to these people, having a chance to just kind of be together. I will grant you peace, you shall lie down untroubled. And then but then there's some more stuff. But that's kind of like their idea of peace. So I mean, what would it mean to an atheist to feel like they were living their best life, you know? I don't know. The Supreme Court wasn't like, the Supreme Court wasn't interfering with separation of church and state. Um, I don't know. People could get their COVID shot because they believed in science and their shingle shots, and children weren't dying of measles, and people in the developing world weren't dying en masse because of the US blockade of Iran. I don't know. Anyways, those are some ideas. Okay, so let's get to the curses. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Okay, chapter 13. This is the really, every atheist should read this because it's just too much fun. I mean, I think you can appreciate it whether you're an atheist or if you're religious. I, the Eternal, am your God, who brought you out from the land of the Egyptians to be their slaves no more, who broke the bars of your yoke and made you walk erect. But if you do not obey, there's the key word, obey me, and do not observe all these commandments, if you reject my laws and spurn my rules, so that they so that you do not observe all my commandments and you break my covenant, I in turn will do this to you. Oh, by the way, my rabbi teaches, my other rabbi taught, and also Richard Freeman talks about how this is a contract. This is your standard Bronze Age contract. I in turn will do this to you. I will wreak misery upon you, consumption and fever, which cause the eyes to pine and the body to languish. You shall sow your seed to no purpose, for your enemies shall eat it. I will set my face against you. You shall be routed by your enemies, and your foes shall dominate you. You shall flee, though no one pursues. And if, for all that, you do not obey me, I will go on to discipline you sevenfold for your sins. I will break your proud glory. I will make your skies like iron and your earth like copper. So it's just a side note here that, the Levant, especially the area right around Israel, was always known for making copper. Copper was a really big deal. And actually, one of the things that I learned this week when I was reading up on this portion and also learning some other things was that they think that the God that eventually became the divine may have had something to do originally with copper. So there may have been some role for copper in the deity that the Torah writes about. And that really helps out. That goes a long way. It's like, I'm always asking, like, what kind of a God is this God? And it's like, if it's a God of copper, it's good to know that, this is a God of copper. Even though the God becomes much more than that, this becomes the monotheistic God. But this is also the God of copper. Anyways, so that your strength shall be to no purpose. Your land shall not yield its produce, nor shall the trees of the land yield their fruit. And if you remain hostile toward me and refuse and do not obey me, I will go on smiting you sevenfold for your sins. I will loose wild beasts against you. They shall bereave you of your children and wipe out your cattle. They shall decimate you, and your road shall be deserted. This is like heavy metal. And if these things fail to discipline you for me, and you remain hostile toward me, I too will remain hostile toward you. I in turn will smite you sevenfold for your sins. I will bring a sword against you to wreak vengeance for the covenant. And if you withdraw into your cities, I will send pestilence among you. You shall be delivered into enemy hands. When I break your staff of bread, 10 women shall break bread in a single oven. They shall dole out bread by weight, and though you eat, you shall not be satisfied. But despite this, you disobey me and remain hostile. I will act against you in wrathful hostility. I, for my part, will discipline you sevenfold for your sins. You shall eat the flesh of your sons and eat the flesh of your daughters. The worst line in the Torah. I will destroy your cult places and cut down your incense stands. I will heap your carcasses upon your lifeless fetishes. Oh my God. Oh, it's so dramatic. I will spurn you. I've got to read that line again. I will destroy the cult places and cut down your incense stands. I will heap your carcasses upon your lifeless fetishes. I will spurn you. I will lay your cities in ruin and make your sanctuaries desolate. I will not savor your pleasing odors. Well, there it is. That's kind of weird. There's the God, basically, he's saying that he's going to destroy everything and do all these miserable things, make you eat your children. And then in the middle of all this, he says, oh, but I wouldn't enjoy smelling your food because I'm the invisible monotheistic God who likes to smell your food. And I will scatter among the nations. I will unsheath the sword against you. Your land shall become a desolation, and your cities a ruin. Then shall the land make up for its Sabbath years throughout the time that is desolate, and you are in the land of your enemies. And then the land may rest and make up for its Sabbath years. So that's it. That's like one of my favorite parts of the Torah. Oh, it's just so funny. It's like, I mean, we can try deconstructing some of it from an atheist perspective. It's pretty horrifying. I mean, obviously the most horrifying part is verse 29, basically talking about I mean, let's give it a name. It's talking about cannibalism. And there's not that many instances of cannibalism. And especially this is like cannibalism of like eating your own children. It's not even like Donner Party cannibalism. It's just really creepy. And I really don't have much to say about it. And then it says, I will just, but this part is really interesting, the next line. And it's interesting how the two are right next to each other. So, the first part is you'll be forced to eat your children as your lunch. And then right after that it says, and then agree and destroy your cult places. And here's the new rules. So, the cult places, I don't know, I mean, different religions kind of all existed around each other at the same time back then. You had this new ascendant Roman kind of naturalism sort of taking over. Um, there's a lot of different traditions coming in at this time, and there's a lot of old traditions too. What's that one? Zoroastrianism is still being practiced pretty widely here. There's a lot of religions, but for the sake of this text, it's just about this one relationship. So, and it's basically saying all the things that are going to happen to you if you don't follow the mitzvot. And the mitzvot, what are they? It's like 613 commandments in the Torah. And about a third of those have to do with the temple, so they don't really count. And then there's always like new interpretation of the mitzvot going on. I will lay your cities in ruin and make your sanctuaries desolate. I will not savor your pleasing odors. Like to me, this is Feuerbach is really right here. I mean, this is a total projection. It's like because this is exactly what Israel's doing to Gaza. It's it's making everything in Gaza total ruins. Almost all of Gaza's housing stock was totally destroyed. And it's like you can't tell me that all 2.2 million people in Gaza were somehow complicit in Shemini Aretz, because that's just not true. Shemini Aretz was performed by a handful, maybe hundreds of people, maybe a few hundred people. Anyways, I am getting sleepy, so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I got a chance to read that. That was my favorite part of Atheist Torah Study. And there's a bunch of other stuff in the text, especially, I mean, Shemitah is really good. I will say Shemitah is really interesting. Now, I am pretty sure nobody ever really practiced Shemitah, but it's a really nice idea. And I think that with the Torah, what really matters is that it's a good idea, or it's an idea that has a future. So this idea that you've set aside time, which is Shabbat in the Torah, is really nice. You do something Jewish-ish every week. And, you know, so anyways, like I said, I'm getting sleepy, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night. But I think the other part that I wanted to talk about in addition to Shemitah and the Jubilee year, and in case you didn't know what those were, the Jubilee year was when the 50th year, and Shemitah was like every 7 years you had to take a Shabbat of the land, so all the land had to lay fallow, and the poor and the indigenous in your community could come out and they could like, if things are just growing wild and you're not doing any work on them, then they can like gather those things because they need those to survive. So that's the idea, but I don't think anybody actually did it. And then the Jubilee year too. The Jubilee year was also about kind of returning property, but you know, I don't think anybody returned any property, and I don't think that they really practiced Shemitah and Jubilee, but I think that they wrote it down because they wanted to preserve this idea of fairness, this idea that fairness is something that has some sort of instinctive source in a tradition. So, and then unfortunately, they kind of ruined this entire double parsha by spending a good part of one chapter talking about the rules around slavery. And the only thing I'll say is just the narrative itself is embracing having just escaped out of slavery. And now here these people are wanting to basically reimpose a certain kind of slavery. So that's part's not so good. Not the highest, best moment for the Torah. Anyways, well, thanks so much for joining me today on Atheist Torah Study. My name is Emma Lugo. Oops. Oh well. Well, my name got in there, just kind of snuck in. My name is Emma, and thanks so much for joining me today on Atheist Torah Study. We'll see you next week.